Have you ever wondered what a building inspector looks at when conducting a foundation inspection? You might be surprised. I'm Ben, I'm a registered building inspector, and I also run a company called ProjectWise. I'm going to go through the things that I look for when doing a foundation inspection. Trench foundations are the most common type of foundations, so that's what I'm going to cover in this video. An inspector will check the existing foundations to make sure they're exposed, and the excavation of the new trench to make sure it's down to the same depth as the existing or below it. It's important that the new foundations are at the same depth or deeper than the existing to limit any potential structural damage or potential defects. This allows the whole property to settle at the same rate. Where possible, dig underneath the existing foundation slightly to create a toe. This will further support the existing structure. New foundations should always use the same foundation method as the existing. For example, if your existing foundation is a trench, then the new should be trench. If you've got piles, then the new should be piles, or designed by a structural engineer. A foundation's depth and width is a major thing that inspectors look at. Since June 2022, when the regs changed to make cavities bigger, this increased the width needed for trenches from 600 to 650, although I'd recommend 700 as it gives you a margin for error. The depth of the foundation is also critical, but it's not as straightforward. Technically, in low shrinkable clay, you can get away with a minimum of 750, but in high shrinkable clay, your minimum is 1 metre. Building control always take the worst case scenario. That's why they suggest a minimum of 1 metre from ground level, unless affected by the proximity of trees or the invert level of drainage nearby. If you're finding this helpful, hit subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. Let's get back into it. Soil plays a big role in the depth of foundations. If you dig and find bedrock, then fantastic, but you'll often find some sort of clay. Clay isn't great because it's susceptible to shrinkage and expansion due to changes in moisture content. This means you can dig to 1 metre, but you might have to go deeper to find good ground. The soil type plays a big factor in the influence a tree might have on the foundation. Trees are great, but when they're near foundations they can be a pain. Trees pose more of a risk when you have clay, because when the tree's alive, it is absorbing water. When it dies, the clay absorbs that water, causing it to expand. That expansion causes heave and potential damage. All trees aren't made equal. Some pose more of a risk than others. The worst 5 trees are eucalyptus, leylandi, hawthorn, poplar, and oak. If any of those trees are within 10 metres of a proposed extension, then they'll have significant impact on the foundation depth. It'd be wise to consult a structural engineer. If you're in well-draining soil like stone or gravel, then you have less to worry about. But if you're still not sure on depth, it's best to speak with your building inspector before you start digging. The invert level of a drainage pipe can impact the foundation depth. A foundation must always be down to the bottom of the pipe or greater, so no load is imposed on the pipe. If the pipe runs 90 degrees to the trench, you might have to put some steps in the trench until you get to the right depth. If the pipe runs beside the trench must be down to the same depth as the pipe or below it, so it's out of the angle of repose. Slope sites mean step foundations are needed. A step should overlap the trench at every change in height and have a minimum overlap of twice the height of the step, or 1 metre whichever is greater. Each step should also be equal. You can see this in diagram 21 on page 36 of approved document A. Sometimes you can't pour all the concrete on the same day for one reason or another, meaning you have to join them. To connect 2 trenches, drill rebar into your first pour and resin fix it. Then you can do your second pour. There should be anywhere between 4 and 8 pieces of rebar extending into each pour by a minimum of 400 mm. Your structural engineer will be able to give you a specific detail for your situation. Now you know what an inspector looks at for a foundation inspection. Check out this video next. If you need support for your build, check out how ProjectWise can help you. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos.